Today on Locked On Red Wings is the Tage, Thompson, and Tim Stutzle deals changing the way that RFAs get their contracts.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I am a podcast producer for WWJ News Radio 950, while Scotty is a freelance journalist for the Detroit News, as well as the host of Locked On Tigers. And today is going to be kind of a blend of a few different things, not one straight narrative all the way through, but just I had a topic I came up with just kind of sitting at home after the Tim Stutzle news came out. It made me start thinking about the fact that Tim Stutzle and Tage Thompson got big contracts after just one big season. And there's a lot of risks and reward that could be paid off. I mean, if these players show that this one good year that they had is the build up into something new, it's a great contract that they're on. Huge budget for those teams that they signed with, the Buffalo Sabres and Ottawa Senators, respectively. But if these two players don't continue to perform the way they are or continue to grow the way they're showing, then these two teams are looking foolish. And that has me and many other fans across the country of different NHL teams starting to sweat a little bit about their own young athletes. And so Scotty and I are going to talk about that. And then later in the show, we're going to talk about some former Red Wings news and where they've signed and just, catch you up on that, as well as the Red Wings are going to be doing a celebratory 25th year anniversary of the 97 Cup win and 24-year anniversary of the 98 Cup win on back-to-back game nights at LCA. And we're going to give you some of the details of that for this season. But Scotty, let's go back to what I was setting up with this contract situation. So last week, Tage Thompson signed a 7-year, $50 million contract, and that's going to have an annual value of $7.142 million. This actually goes down to the single dollar, but it's only got a bonus in the first year. After that, it's all salary. So after 1 year, so Tage Thompson was traded to the St. Louis Blues, or from the St. Louis Blues to the Buffalo Sabres in 2018. He had mediocre seasons at the NHL and AHL levels up until this last year, where he finally exploded for 68 points, 38 goals, 30 points for 30 assists for 68 points in 78 games played. His career high prior to that was 12 in 65 games played in 2018-19. Now, he has struggled with injuries over his previous seasons, but this year he had a breakout year, and he is still an RFA at the expiration of his current contract, going into the final year of that current contract this year, making $1.4 million. In Ottawa, the Ottawa Senators are going big right now. Tim Stutzle is going into the final year of his entry-level contract, where he is going to be making a base salary of $832,000, but could make up to $3.4 million. So he signed a huge extension after one big year this offseason, just this last week. 58 points, 79 games played, 22 goals, 36 assists, lockstep with Raymond. Lucas Raymond's first year. Tim Stutzle signs a 8-year, $66.8 million contract with an AAV of $8.35 million. And that is, like I said, as soon as the show started, Scotty, that is huge risk reward. And before we even get into the Red Wings angle, what do you make of these monster contracts these players are getting after just one good year?
Yeah, so this is a trend throughout a lot of different sports these days. This is something that was not common practice at all for many decades, right? This is not something we saw very often at all. And then recently has become more and more popular, like I said, not only across hockey, but really across all sports lately. And it's a fascinating debate and conversation, because there is obviously a lot more impending risk when you give a lot of years and a lot of money to somebody who, I mean, in some cases are not even playing up to that level of AAV yet, right? Like when you look at other people that are getting paid that amount, like per year salary, there are some cases where you're like, okay, this dude's not even really performing like a dude that's making whatever 3, 4, 5 mil a year yet. And eventually then the belief is they start playing as good as what they're going to make on a yearly basis. And then best case scenario for the team is that then the player is already financially committed for several years and went on a long-term deal. So you're then getting a discount for the last however many years of the deal because they were playing better than what you're paying them, but you locked them up short or at the beginning of their career long-term. So it's something that we're starting to see it a lot in baseball, and it's something that was not common practice at all in the sport of baseball for a long time. We're seeing it in hockey now. Wasn't too popular in hockey either. We're seeing it in basketball. Like, this is something that is kind of a new wave, I guess you would say. And while it does, like I said, come with a little bit more risk, it also comes with great reward if worked out correctly too, just because of all the reasons I laid out. So I am very intrigued by it. And I think when you have a team that is trying to exit a rebuild and has so much young talent on it, it becomes a really fascinating conversation for a team like the Detroit Red Wings.
It really does. And like you said, Scotty, it's a huge risk to take on a guy, especially I'd argue, I don't know which one of these two players is the bigger risk right now. I mean, Tage Thompson showed that he wasn't much of anything the first few years. Of course, again, he battled injuries. And then this past year, he broke out of his shell. But he's got more receipts than Tim Stutzle. But Tim Stutzle, built on an already decent rookie season, showed that he was going to become a phenomenal player. So there's just a huge risk with whether or not this player, because if this player turns out to go, if they both regress, or if even if Tim Stutzle stays a career like 58-point guy, that doesn't justify $8.35 million. So you're taking a huge gamble on these guys continuing to take a step forward. And if it works out, then your organization looks great. But I'm really concerned about how this impacts not just the Red Wings RFAs, but RFAs league-wide. We saw it this last year. Lucas Raymond had a comparable season, his rookie season, that Tim Stutzle just had. If Lucas Raymond goes in there in year 2 and Moritz Seider goes in there in year 2 and has a dominant season, they're going to be looking at the Tage Thompson deal. They're going to be looking at the Tim Stutzle deal and going, okay, sign us to these contracts. Whereas in the past, that's not how things got done. It was a progression. You got bridge deals. And then right before you got your RFA you expired as an RFA. We're about to go into a UFA. That last time you're going to be an RFA, you got that big contract. It's also, it doesn't make much sense to me either, as far as like, if you're looking at it from the player perspective, I get you're securing the bag like as soon as possible. That's great. But you're going to be coming out of these contracts. Like Tim Stutzle is what? He is the same draft class as Lucas Raymond. So he's 20 years old. He's going to be coming out of this massive contract at 28 years old. You know, that the chances of you getting an even bigger contract after that, it's tough to grow from this, and obviously it's a flat cap this year. So that's a really tough decision for general managers to make anyways. And the cap's going to continue to grow though from here on out. So, maybe they get a bump just because of salary cap inflation, but you have to maintain or be better than you have to justify your $8.35 million and then also get a bump in salary. That progression is meant to build you up. So when you do hit that UFA market, then you get your big contract. You get your big contract now as an RFA. It almost might be the biggest contract you get in your career. And then teams aren't going to want to give you big contracts after that, if that makes sense. I could be looking way too deep into it. I really could be.
No, I mean, you're right. But I think let's go to an ad and then I'll rebuttal, because you're correct. But I think that's the point. Well, I'll go more in depth after you.
Okay. Our next partner is somebody you guys got to use every single day. You got to start taking AG1. What is the stuff? With one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging, all of those things. It's lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free. Contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals, or artificial anything, while still tasting good. It costs you less than $3 a day. You're investing in your health, and it's cheaper than your cold brew habit. It's cheaper than getting all those different supplements yourself. You're investing in an all-in-one nutritional insurance. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the daily nutritional insurance. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty and I are talking about this Tage Thompson and Tim Stutzle deal and what that could imply for the Red Wings. And before I kind of went on a little bit of a ramble about how these long contracts these players are getting out of RFA status are, you know, I understand it. I understand you're getting your money as soon as possible, but I worry about the impact on the players' financial possibilities once they come out of this big contract, you know?
Yeah, I mean, so my thing is, why does it matter when you get your big contract as long as you get it? And I would also say that if you get your big contract at 20 and you get it for 7-8 years, then you are on the open market again at 27, 28 years old, which you do very much have a chance of getting another really big contract because you are in the middle of your prime for most people. Whereas if you were to wait and do the normal progression and work your way up, get your first big contract at 24, 25, then you're a free agent again in your early 30s. And then you're like the odds of you getting a second bigger deal, I think, are way greater when you're 27, 28, even 29 than it is when you're 32 to 35. I think that the reason that you do it early is long-term financial guarantees at a very young age, but you also are doing it young enough where if you do reach the peak that they believe you can and you do want to hit free agency eventually, you can, and you'll do it right in the middle of your prime. I think it's honestly perfect for players.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense for Tim Stutzle. I was just overthinking it for sure. The Tage Thompson one, I mean, even he got 7 years. He's only 24. He comes out at 31. Wrong side of 30, sure, but if he's performing at a high level, he's going to get another big contract. What I was trying to get at was, and we can move on here shortly and talk about the implications on Lucas Raymond and Moritz Seider. But what I was trying to get at is, like, these players, you know, you want that big, long contract to take you to the end of your career, and getting it this early, I thought maybe would mean that the second half of their career, they're not getting those long contracts. But you're right. Tim Stutzle is only going to be 28 by the time this ends, 29, worst case scenario. I don't know exactly where his birthday falls. But, I mean, if he's being Tim Stutzle, you know, he's going to get a big payday because that cap is going to go up. So even based on inflation. So, like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. You're spot on, Scotty. But I guess my worry then comes to this when talking about Lucas Raymond and Moritz Seider. The Red Wings still have to sign Tyler Bertuzzi and Lucas Raymond. They currently have $8 million in cap space. They have to get an extension. These two guys are going into the final year of their free agents, their current contracts before becoming UFAs. I would never consider the fact that Moritz Seider and Lucas Raymond may be up for big contract extensions at the end of this season. You look at what just happened to Tim Stutzle. He's going into the final year of his ELC after this season. That's going to be with the same situation Lucas Raymond and Moritz Seider are going to find themselves in. And obviously, we're going to have contracts coming off the books, so your $8 million is going to widen a little bit. But if you already have these two extensions you got to do, does these two signings change how you have to approach next offseason? If Moritz Seider and Lucas Raymond have another big year, are they now going, okay, now we want to get paid big? Is the day of the bridge deal of getting like a three-year deal, getting paid like $5 million a year gone? Are we looking at long-term extensions for young players?
I think both can be true. I think you're going to see long-term extension for young players, but I also don't think that the bridge deal is dead. I would also say that Moritz Seider is not a normal prospect.
Yeah.
And Moritz Seider, honestly, at this point, I would be pretty surprised if he didn't get a long-term contract before his like team control and whatnot like ran dry. I think.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
Like I would be like he's gonna get one. Like he absolutely is gonna get one. Raymond might be more of a candidate for a bridge deal type of thing where he's getting still again before he would be even close to hitting the open market, but would get more of like a bridge deal type of thing, maybe take him through arbitration and all that. And then maybe they renegotiate when he's closer to, like how it has worked more so than not in the past. But Moritz Seider, I think is going to get a long-term deal, and I think it's going to be sooner rather than later. And I don't know. I don't think anything's wrong with that. Like, I think that is doing that is a situation where you can guarantee he is on the team for more years. And if you do it sooner, like as soon as possible, then you can get him on a more team-friendly deal than waiting until he's a UFA and then everyone can bid on him and then he's, a couple years older and one of the best defensemen in the game of hockey. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think they should do it sooner. I think it's more beneficial for him and it's more beneficial for the Red Wings and the cap situation if they do it sooner rather than later, because waiting is just pushing off the inevitable, and the AAV is going to be significantly larger the longer you wait.
See, this is why I love you, Scotty. I came into this episode a little bit anxious about the implications of what this could mean for the Red Wings, and just listening to you talk there, like you've made complete sense, man. It makes perfect sense when you explain it like that. You're spot on, especially with the Moritz Seider part. If he goes out, I mean, he's a Calder champion. If he goes out and has another big deal or a big year, then why wouldn't Steve Yzerman want to do a contract like this? One, he's going to have, not to say he'd get like the same contract Tim Stutzle would, but do a long-term extension sooner rather than later. Because like you said, yeah, it might be a big number right now, but if you sign Moritz Seider to a bridge deal and he continues to play even better, then you have to give him an even bigger number at the end of that bridge deal. So
whereas if you do an 8-year thing and give him a set AAV, I mean, by the last 3 or 4 years, you might be getting him on a massive quote unquote discount because he's one of the best defensemen in hockey, and you're still paying him, what you agreed to pay him, whatever, 5-6 years ago.
And that's the gamble that the Ottawa Senators are. But I mean, but look at it this way too. If Moritz Seider were to do what Moritz Seider did last year again this year, it'd be less of a gamble, I would argue, because Moritz Seider then has 2 seasons of exemplary play, whereas Tim Stutzle just has that 1 year. So I think that signing, yeah, you're right. No, you're spot on, man. That's
Raymond's an interesting conversation.
But if Raymond even has another year of like close to 60 points, then you could even make that argument too. The question then still becomes cap space, because you do have to extend Larkin, you do have to extend Bertuzzi. So like, do you have enough money right now to extend all 4 of those guys to big contracts if the situation would arise?
Well, you're still gonna have a really decent amount of cap space next off season again. And yeah, so I think you could probably find, and like, I mean, let's be honest, the cap is like barely real. Like, you can manipulate cap and like turn cap space into bonus money and signing bonuses into cap and vice versa. And like, the cap is like barely a real thing. So I think if they really want to, they will be able to find a way to get it done with all those guys for sure.
I mean, I'm looking at who the Red Wings have as UFAs next year. Obviously, Larkin and Bertuzzi, you expect to sign. You got Pius Suter, Oscar Sundqvist, who I would imagine the Red Wings want to keep if he plays pretty well again. Adam Ernie, I have to imagine, would be walking. Oli Mata was a 1 year. Jordan Osterley's got 1 year left. Jake Woolman has 1 year left after this one. And then Mark Pysyk as well is on a 1 year deal. Yeah, and then Nedeljkovic even is gone after this year. So
yeah, I mean,
could
I
be
think
gone.
The assumption is they bring him back, but yeah, contract is up at the end of the year for sure.
So I mean, yeah, the assumption obviously they bring him back. There's a lot of cap space that could be opening up. I imagine they bring some of these guys back, like you said, Nedeljkovic. I think Sundqvist would be a candidate to come back, but there's a lot of cap space that could exist. So I guess in the end, it feels like after having this conversation that my anxiety was a little over nothing. Like I feel a lot more comfortable with that idea than I did, 20 minutes ago when we started having this conversation. I almost like the idea now. It is a risk, but with guys like Lucas Raymond and Moritz Seider, they feel like less of a risk.
Yeah. I mean, and there's always going to be an innate risk, and stuff happens, and that's always part of the gamble. The like I said, this is becoming so common in other sports that there's already some examples of that, but it's definitely a way to get ahead of the market, get ahead of everything, get some financial security for these players earlier, which is in my book never a bad thing. And it'll be really, it'll be a fascinating thing to keep an eye on, because I mean, at this point I would be stunned, especially with the amount of players of similar caliber to Seider that are, or even honestly lesser caliber than Moritz Seider, that are already getting these kind of long-term deals to just cut right through the bridge deal. I would be shocked if he didn't get one over the next 24 months. But I do think Raymond is more of a conversation. Not that I'm against it by any means, but I think Raymond, for me, what will determine locking him up long term will hinge way more on what he does in year 2 than like Seider. Like Seider could really, I'm confident, and what I mean. Like I'm fully confident in giving Moritz Seider as long of a deal as Steve is comfortable, for as much money as Steve is comfortable. Where Raymond, I think there's a little bit more of a discourse about, I kind of want to see what he does in year 2 before I'm willing to give over a 6 to 8 year deal.
I completely agree. Now I completely agree. You've won me over in this argument, Scotty. 100%.
I didn't even feel like it was an argument.
No, I was just a little nervous about it, but your argument made perfect sense. Let's move on to former Red Wings news then. This last week there were 2 signings. Former Red Wings, it was Sam Gagner signed a 1 year league minimum deal, $750,000 with the Winnipeg Jets. And then you had Danny DeKeyser, former alternate captain of the Detroit Red Wings, sign a professional tryout, a PTO with the Vancouver Canucks. Scotty, out of those 2 signings, which one surprises you more?
Come on, man. Come on, man. I don't want to do it.
Okay, I'll say it then. The Danny DeKeyser one did come as a surprise, because I think there was a lot of people in the Red Wings universe that thought he would retire. He did not.
I 100% didn't think there was any scenario that he would be still trying to play. Not only still like trying to play hockey, but also like he wants to play so bad he's taking like PTOs.
Yeah.
Like it's not even like, some bad team is going to give him a 1 year deal to be a healthy every night, and he's just going to sit there and make his $750K or whatever, and that's going to be it. Like, no, like he wants to play still so badly that he's going to like try out for a spot on an NHL roster.
A spot across the continent.
Right.
For an NHL roster spot. I mean, we're talking about Vancouver. We're not talking about he's going south to Columbus for a PTO.
Right.
I mean, he would have to uproot his entire family to go play with the Vancouver Canucks. That's how bad Danny DeKeyser wants to continue playing, and good on him. Like, I have no ill will towards Danny DeKeyser whatsoever. I mean, he gave his body to this organization, trying his damnedest to play at a high level, and unfortunately, it felt like his body kind of took a toll. Like it just wasn't working out in the way that they were hoping. He was hoping even. I know he had that back surgery, and I think that's really what did it. So I'm happy he's, continuing to pursue the game at an NHL level, and I'm happy he got a PTO. It could very well be where an NHL team needs to hit their veteran minimum for preseason, and then they'll release him from his PTO. That could be a possibility. Like, that is a thing that happens. But if he does earn a roster spot, that 1 year, two-way contract, and good for him for continuing his career. I hope for nothing but the best. Same with Sam Gagner. Sam Gagner was here, 2 years? And I loved every moment of him. He was a bottom six forward, but he was a heart in that locker room, man. He was, I made the argument several times that the Red Wings decided to give him a 1 year contract to give him the A. And I wanted him to get that 1,000th career game in a Red Wings uniform. Like, he just very much is like a very likable guy, and he's a pretty good bottom six forward at that. Like, you put him anywhere in the bottom six, and he's gonna play solidly. So I'm happy for both these players to being able to get the opportunity to continue their NHL careers. Danny DeKeyser probably more so, just because it was a little bit of a surprise, if I'm being honest. But I'm happy for him.
For sure, yeah. I mean, these are. Yeah, I mirror everything you said. I mean, those are two guys that gave a lot in Gagner. We talked about last year. The Gagner game. R.I.P. the Gagner game, man. And there was always one every season. There was always a Gagner game. But no, I mean, he'll take on a good leadership role there. That team is in a kind of a fascinating situation, Winnipeg, and so. Yeah, it's cool that he got a roster spot, can maybe be more of a leader again to that team, and yeah, it's cool. I mirror everything you said. I think it's I wish nothing but the best for either of them. So,
and then Red Wings organizational news: they are hosting this year, 1997, the 2022, 25 years since the Red Wings have won the 1997 Stanley Cup, and they'll be celebrating that cup and the 98 Cup on back-to-back home games, November 3rd and November 5th, I believe it is. November 3rd against the Washington Capitals is the commemoration of the 97 Cup, which is really funny because they won the 98 Cup against the Capitals. So you would think that they'd want to do that against the Capitals, 98 Cup against the Capitals, but maybe it just came down to scheduling. And then November 5th against the Islanders, they're commemorating the 98 Cup championship. And it's going to include former players from both those teams, 97, 98, largely the same core. And then as well, the Stanley Cup's going to be there for on the concourse for people to take photos with. So they're going to have a pregame ceremony and everything, give people a little bit of a nostalgia. I thought that was really cool. Thought it was a perfect thing to just peg at the end of the podcast and go, kind of want to go to those games.
Yeah, why wouldn't you, man? No, it's cool. I think it's a great idea. I think that the Tigers have had 84 anniversaries, and every once in a while they've had some 68 anniversary stuff for those who are still with us from that team as well. Like, it's a super cool thing to be able to celebrate a championship, and I don't know. I think it's cool. I think it's super cool. It's a reason to get a team together outside of just jersey retirements and stuff. Like, it's cool. And we're very fortunate in the sense that we have a lot of players from that core and that era kind of in our front office. So we thankfully get somewhat not accustomed to, but we get to see a lot of those former players quite often. But it's still, I'm all about celebrating good things in life, especially as we get further and further away from those teams. So super cool.
There you have it, guys. Let us know in the comments if you think that the Red Wings should sign Moritz, Seider, and Lucas Raymond to long-term contracts sooner rather than later. Let us know why. And, maybe we'll read those comments on our Wednesday or Friday episode. I do believe Wednesday, Scotty, we have a crossover planned with Locked On Montreal Canadiens. So stay tuned for that. Another divisional preview. That should be exciting. And that should about do it, Scotty. You got any final thoughts, my man?
I'm still drinking the blue Kool-Aid. Still all in. Still all in. Philly's a really good team. Lost by a field goal. Had a chance to win it with, 8 minutes left or whatever. Or in the game, I should say, with, 8 minutes and less left. I'm still riding high. Still drinking the Kool-Aid. Back next week, back next Sunday for round 2 of pain. But for now, we ball.
All right, that'll do it. We ball. Back Wednesday, same time, same place. It's your team every day.
Every day.